If you are already familiar with the Windows screen elements, then it won't be a huge surprise, since these screen elements look and behave very similar to their Windows siblings. In the system, there are transactions with simple screens containing only a few input fields, and there are many complex transactions with many complex screens, including the complete screen element palette. For this reason, I try to choose a transaction for this demonstration that contains all the necessary screen elements that you need to know. I chose the transaction VD02 alias changing a customer. So let's enter this code into the command field and then run it by pressing an enter key. As most of the transactions, this one also has an initial screen to greet the users who come here to change the data for a specific customer. Most of the data entry transactions have an initial screen like this in order to select the specific object that we want to work on. In our case, to select the specific customer that we want to work on. Hold up for a second. This screen already has some interesting elements that we should talk about. The first element is the input field. This screen includes 4 different input fields, one for entering a customer ID, and the other 3 are for entering a sales organization, a distribution channel, and a division. In addition, each input field has its corresponding field label that helps you to understand the meaning of the fields. You may notice that among the 4 input fields, there is a specific one that differs a bit from the others. The small checkmark icon on its left indicates that it's a mandatory input field. So we cannot move to the main screen until we enter an existing customer ID, since this is mandatory. What else we have on a screen? Well, we can have buttons. We can have label buttons, and we can have icon buttons as well. Both of these buttons enable us to reach a specific feature, like searching for a specific customer, or searching for a sales area, or entering to the next screen, or even cancelling the process. Now I'm looking for a customer whose name starts with DYN, and I use the star wildcard that enables me to list all the customers whose name starts with these characters. Here let's stop for a second. We push that telescope button that popped up a new screen, a screen that enables us to search. This screen also has a few input fields, field labels, and also icon buttons. If you are ready, we can push the enter button, namely that checkmark button down there. This button also pops up in another new screen, a results screen that displays all the customers whose name starts with the DYN characters organized into a table. So the next screen element is the table that is for displaying the business data in an intuitive way, organized into columns and rows. Later we will talk about tables, so I don't want to talk much more about this, I just wanted to mention it. To choose a customer, let's select a row. Now I'm interested in the third one, and then push the enter button again, that is now located in the top left corner. The system, based on the selected row, inserted the proper customer ID into the relevant input field. So there is nothing left than push that enter button once again, that will immediately bring us to the main screen of this transaction. You are right, it's a data entry transaction, and within that a complex data entry transaction that consists of many screens with many screen elements on them. Alright, I advise that we should start with something simple. Here you are, let's talk about the disabled input fields. If an input field is not input ready, or let's say it is disabled for some reason, then the system displays it as grayed out, and it means that we cannot change its content. The next one is the scrolling area. The system uses vertical and horizontal scroll bars if the content doesn't fit on the screen. Yes, I know that, but I cannot tell you what those empty spaces are for and why SAP GUI doesn't fill the entire screen. It's not too useful, but I can live with it. So the point is, if you recognize any scroll bars on the screen, it means that there is a content below, you just need to scroll for it. As I told you before, this is a very complex screen, so we need some crutches, like the groups. On the one hand, they groups the related data together, and on the other hand, they separate the non-related data from each other. And with this, making a complex screen more transparent. If you notice the small buttons on the screen with this icon, then it means that there is some hidden content. This is also kind of layout optimization feature. The less necessary content is usually hidden behind these display and hide buttons. What else we have? Yes, we can have drop-down lists. We can display the available value range using this small downward arrow, and then we can select the proper value. The screens also can have, so to say, a tab strip that is also useful if we have a huge amount of data to be displayed. The system organizes the data into different tabs, and we can navigate between these tabs by clicking on them. And with this, we arrive to the next screen element, the checkboxes. If you remember, we have already worked with checkboxes. When we display the technical names in the menu tree, and when we hide the menu tree, we work with checkboxes. Checkboxes enable us to answer yes and no questions, like does the customer subject to equalization tax, or is the customer a natural person? We can mark as many checkboxes as many needed. If you navigate to the tab Export Data, then I can introduce you the last screen element, the radio buttons. We can choose among different options, but in contrast to the checkboxes, radio buttons allow marking only one option at a time. Alright, this is it. We covered all the necessary screen elements that you need to know. It doesn't mean you are a master of the SAP GUI. It rather means that you know about the different screen elements and you are ready to move on and start focusing on the selection screens.